Welcome to Autistic People Talking, a podcast where autistic people talk. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Autistic People Talking. My name is Claire, and this is my channel, Woodshed Theory. Here, I make content about what it is like to live as an adult on the autism spectrum and whatever else feels good to me. So if that sounds good to you, or if you're feeling particularly gracious today, and I hope that you are, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell. Guys, we have such an amazing guest with us today. It is a person of some YouTube fame, an OG, and that is Purple Ella. Welcome, Ella, to the show.
Hi, thank you for such a lovely introduction.
I'm so happy.
I'll be like, oh, I better be good now then, hadn't I?
I mean, you could be good, you could be bad, you could be whatever you want. You could be purple, you could be yellow.
I could be, that's what I heard. I could be brown, I could be violet sky.
Exactly. I was going to ask you that right out of the gate, but I guess before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit of your, I ask this to most people who come on, but like, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know why you think you're here?
I watched one of your podcasts and someone's like, I feel like I'm in therapy. And I'm like, yeah, that really is the vibe that question gives, isn't it? Why am I here? On the planet, on the podcast?
I mean, it's open-ended. It's
It really is, isn't it? So I am I guess I'm a late diagnosed autistic adult, and really late diagnosed, like 36 late diagnosed. I guess, which isn't really like it feels really, when you think about the context of most people talking about autism are in their 20s, but I guess like Anthony Hopkins was diagnosed in his 70s, so maybe I shouldn't say like really late diagnosed. I'm rambling. Okay, I'm also an advert.
It's okay, time's not real, so
it's fine. I'm an advocate, which means for me that I make content on the internet on a variety of platforms, and I also deliver training and do public speaking, and generally just seem to be a bit of an autistic person magnet out there in the world that like wants to help other autistic people, which is why I'm here, and I guess why I'm here in the larger sense. I also am the parent to 2 autistic children, and by children probably isn't the right word anymore, because my eldest autistic young person is 17 and will be an adult in less than a year. So I guess I've like raised an autistic person nearly.
You run the race. It's almost over.
Yeah, and I have a 13-year-old daughter who is autistic as well. So I feel like that gives me kind of insight from the perspective of being an autistic person, but also of like supporting an autistic person.
And you have 2 girls, yeah?
I have 2 girls. I also have a son who is not autistic, but he does have ADHD. So I don't have any neurotypical children.
I feel comforted to know that there are neurodiverse pods out there. So it makes me feel comforted.
I like that. We're like swimming around.
I do hear, though, that a lot of neurodiverse families, they find out together later in life that they're neurodiverse. Is that how you came to know about your neurodiversity?
Kind of. So my mom worked in a school for children with additional needs, but like at the time in the UK, so we're talking 40 years ago, the schools were divided into SLD and something else, and SLD was like severe need, right? According to the kind of language we used then. And she worked in an SLD school where there were quite a lot of autistic people who also had a learning difficulty or who were also non-speaking. So I spent a lot of my like childhood around autistic people who we don't often see represented really in the sort of advocacy scene. And my mom was at the same time noticing that I was not typical, but obviously someone like me didn't look like what she had in mind when she thought about autism. So she did like take me to see an educational psychologist, because she had access to such things because she worked in special ed, and they diagnosed me with dyspraxia. So I guess I did receive a neurodivergent diagnosis as a child. I was like 6 or 7. I think that came about because the ballet teacher told my mom to take me away and never bring me back again. Yeah, I know, right? The 80s and the early 90s, they were great. the short version is yes, after my eldest child was identified and diagnosed as autistic, I took what I already knew in terms of that I was neurodivergent and the mental health struggles that I had been having as a result of like trying to live in a neuronormative world, and went, wait a minute, hang on, this looks similar to what I'm learning about in relation to my child, maybe this is me. So yeah,
Interesting.
kind of, but kind of not.
So kind of a mix of things. I feel like that was my story of coming into my autism as well. Just like this like pitter patter of breadcrumbs throughout my life. So I understand what you mean there. When you said dyspraxia, I think about I was actually studying for a year at Cambridge, and I only dropped the name to highlight how out of it I was as far as like understanding myself. Because I was reading from the board during a lecture, and the professor turned around and said something like, "Are you dyslexic?" And I was like, "Me? No." And he's like, "I've noticed when you read from the board, sometimes you read the end of the word first." And I was like, I don't think so." So I set up a meeting with the university group that handles that. And I just remember having, well, it was a bad day anyway, but I remember having a bit of a meltdown during this like initial intake. And I don't know that I don't know that I would consider myself dyslexic, but I remember during the meeting, the lady was like, "Hmm, it could be more like dyspraxia." And I had never heard that word before. But all of that to say that I ended that uh, meeting with no further answers, because basically she was like, "Well, you could get tested for dyslexia, but you're an adult now, so how many how would it help you moving forward?" Um, but that's the same thing that happened to me even years before that. I was um, my roommate in another at another university. She and I both took like autism quizzes because her family member had said that, "Oh, I saw this thing on TV. Maybe this is what's up with you." So we both took the quizzes. We both scored super high, that we were on the autism spectrum. And both of us at that moment decided that there was no way that we could both be in grad school and be autistic and not know. So we just wrote it off and kept moving on. And she got a diagnosis a few years later. And then I didn't get diagnosed for 10 years until after that. Cause I had just never, it was not in my mind that it was a possibility, because it was not like what I saw in my mind that autism was. So, like, moving into a better understanding, actually watching videos like yours early on, really solidified it for me. So, thank you.
No problem. I suppose though, when you think about it, most aspects of our identity, whether that's our sexuality, our gender identity, like do sort of, you hear something, you think about it for a while. Like it's not very often that you would go like, oh yes, I've just learnt this new thing and now this is what, like, so it's probably quite natural for something as big as, hey, your brain isn't in the majority neurotype, to take some years to really filter through, right?
That's true. And if I think what people don't understand is that just because we didn't know until we were older doesn't mean that we weren't necessarily struggling. And I have to explain to people, like, um, how would you know if you had no frame of reference for that? Like, if that was just the way that you lived and that was your life, that would just be your life. You wouldn't think, Ella autism, Claire autism. You would think this is just this is just me, and maybe I suck at this.
Yeah, or like I'm just not a very, like, people always use the Mac Windows analogy, don't they? So I'm not going to use
Yeah, different Linux,
Microsoft.
like,
It's really, really overused. But like, I suppose I prefer to think of it as like, you're just not doing really very well at being a dog, and then you figure out that you're a cat. But those years
exactly.
when you think you're a very inefficient dog, um, aren't that great because
Mm.
you really don't like fetching a ball.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast, and I know that everyone is going to be really excited to hear from you as well. When I've been thinking recently, leading up to this, about you and uh, your journey, and what I'm most interested, I think, or what I think about when I think about you is a journey of like great self discovery and like the peace that comes with self discovery. And I think that you have been a role model and a light for a lot of people in our community who are, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I get it. I'm
No.
the same. Yeah, I'm like, excuse me. Um, in our community who have you, I think you've given people permission to explore. Um, where did where do you feel like you got kind of the strength, the inspiration to do that for yourself?
um, I think I always think of myself as quite an optimistic person. I've always been quite an optimistic person, and even in the face of some quite difficult stuff, I've always kind of felt like, but like I'll probably figure it out and it'll probably get better. I don't really know why. I don't think I have some special like quality that makes me great because I do that. I honestly think some of this stuff we're just like handed or not handed, and I was handed the keep trying gene. And so throughout my life, when I've recognized that I'm perhaps not handling life the way that people expect me to, or the way that would lead to like most inner peace and happiness for me, I've just kind of felt of it, sort of thought of it as like a puzzle that I'm going to figure out. And I think that's what you see in my videos over the years, is me being like, yes, maybe if I try this. And I think that also having children made that even more of a priority for me, because I can't get into it because some of my parents are still alive, but I had quite a traumatic childhood. And that has impacted me, like to this day, really. And so a big priority of mine as a parent was that that wouldn't be the story that my children lived with. And
Good.
so I recognized, I guess, that I am not necessarily sailing through life, and now I have these babies and I really really want to give them like a healthy mirror to look into, because you're mirroring stuff, especially when they're really little, right? So that they can grow up feeling, and my big priorities were that they could grow up feeling comfortable in their own skin. The only thing I ever wanted for them was to be the happiest versions of who they are. I never wanted anything more than that, but I couldn't show them that if I wasn't trying to achieve that myself, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that. But as I've gotten older, and I think this is quite what's interesting about having a YouTube channel, is you can go back and look at my earlier videos where I'm like, this technique, that strategy, and now I'm just like, just go with the flow a bit more, because I feel like as I've gotten older, that's become less find a strategy and fix it, and more be in the moment, and it is what it is. Does that make sense?
Does make sense. I think that comes with, yeah, I think that comes with age, as you were saying. Well, I guess age and self discovery as you get more comfortable with yourself, and wanting, I think wanting to see that mirrored for your children is just amazing. Especially, I think, coming out of a few generations where it was like, shove it away, shove who you are away, and just go with the flow of everyone else. So I get that. Well, I was doing some research yesterday on about your channel because I thought, gosh, Ella's, Ella's been at this for a really long time. So 2012 is when your channel started.
Yeah, but I don't really feel like it started until 2016. Yeah, so I probably put up my first autism video, I think went up in June 2016, which is still like nearly 9 years ago now. I can't count. Is that 9 years?
I think it's 8 years.
8 years, yeah. But in YouTube terms, that's like 30 years, isn't it?
No, it's like cat and dog years, I think. I know you do like a lot of different panels and advocacy. Do you still get nervous about doing that?
Yeah, no, not really, I suppose, because I have been doing it for
Great,
quite
great. I'm glad you
a
can
while.
commiserate. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But what I do, no, I'm sorry. That was really unempathetic. No, I'm fine with that. No,
Nah, that's just you.
here's how and why I don't get nervous. I was a juggler in the early noughties, and I was booked to do the British Juggling Convention public show, which is like the best of British juggling in a show for all of the British jugglers to go and watch. So I was absolutely terrified of this show. And there were these child Russian jugglers that were also booked for the show, and they were backstage.
Perfect.
And
They're probably perfect.
oh, they were perfect. But the girl of this, it was a brother sister duo, and the girl was backstage and she was doing cartwheels and she was dancing and she looked like she was about to go to a party. And I said to her, like, are you not nervous? And she was like, no, because I'm going to go out there and have a great time, aren't I? And I was like, oh my gosh. And like, I don't usually condone just shift your mindset type advice because that wouldn't work for me. But on this occasion, I was like, well, hang on a minute. Yeah, like, why am I doing this if it's not to go out there and have fun? Like, really, why am I
That's
doing this?
true.
Point. So I started to have the same pre-show routine, which was that I would do cartwheels and it generally irritate everyone backstage by being way too hyper and like excited. But it changed my whole like feeling about going out on stage, which I think has been quite useful to me.
Did
To
it
me,
feel like you were to like make that? Did you feel like you were putting a mask on? Like, or do
no,
you?
I felt like I was getting my energy to the place that I wanted it to be to entertain an audience. Because really, like entertaining an audience is kind of performing. Like it's just a problem if you're performing like all the time in an autistic masking sense. But it's not a problem on stage in front of an audience where it's like maybe appropriate and useful, I suppose. Yeah.
What has your experience been um, with masking? Do you feel like it's something that you did throughout your undiagnosed life or diagnosed life? What has your experience been with that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Masking has been a really big part of my like wellness journey in the last few years, right? In that I think, and I think this is probably really, really common, particularly for people who were, assigned female at birth, that I received the message that I wasn't acceptable and that I wasn't, doing life right. But the very, very important and most important thing that I must do is never make anyone feel sad or uncomfortable ever. So
Yeah,
I would like always be smiley and I would like always be upbeat and I wanted like to make people like I would never want to be like visibly sad or anything other than happy because it might make someone else in the room feel uncomfortable, God forbid.
right.
So I learned to be like permanently smiley. And if you watch my earlier videos, that is who I am still being in the early part of my diagnosis journey, like just perpetually cheerful. And in fact, someone even described me at some point reasonably early on in my career as, but you're the friendly advocate, and that's really lovely. And I'm like, well, okay, great, that's who I am. I'm the like warm, friendly advocate, and that is really lovely. But actually, it's also exhausting.
Not sustainable. It's not
It's not
sustainable.
really sustainable being that way. And it also means that when other people express the very natural range of human emotions that we should all express, I feel like like a level of irritation, right? That
Mm,
they can express this thing. Why are you allowed to be a little bit like quiet today? I always have to be entertaining. That
right.
it's irritating, right? And I talked about this in a video and loads of people related, so I think it's okay to talk about it again.
No,
Um,
I think it's very true. I remember an experience of because I always kind of felt that way as well. Especially when you at a subconscious level know that you don't fit and then so you feel like you're always trying to put the other person at ease. And I remember hearing from what I thought at the time was a friend, gosh, that's a whole nother subject. Um, them saying like, "Well, why are you like this today? Like, why aren't you?" They literally said something like, You're supposed to entertain me, basically." And I remember feeling like, "Wait, I so other people are allowed to have feelings, but I have to be the one to like cheer people up every day? Like
and it's
that's the expectation?"
exactly, and it's absolutely exhausting, isn't it? And I delivered my training like this. I did my talks like this. I made my videos like this, and I got burnout, really, really bad burnout in like 2020, and couldn't
Yeah.
work and couldn't do anything. So recently, I've been working on not doing that. thing of, I think, like, which probably you can relate to, I don't know, of like, what is my face supposed to be doing? Let's make sure it's doing it, because
Right.
like, naturally, I think I'm quite blank faced, but you wouldn't really know that about me because I've learned to like perform the facial expressions that people expect from me. So I'm trying to let go of doing that. And I've actually, it's easier. I think it's easier in the context of delivering training than it is in a video, because a video to some extent is a performance, right?
Right. People ask all the time, like, well, you don't, well, you understand, you don't seem very autistic giving these videos. And I'm like, oh, is it strange that I like when you sit down and you're reading something and you're putting on kind of putting on a performance, right? Like you're giving the information. So I think all acting in that way is there's an aspect of masking in all acting. So um, whether that be giving a presentation or actually being in a play or a movie or whatever, there's some aspect of it that's like put on. And the idea of like that everything is just like the idea that you could give information and not some put on some sort of mask or do some sort of I don't know, right? Autistic traits are human traits, right?
Well, because
So
you want to make it something that people will listen to, right?
right,
And
like,
if I'm
what are you
gonna sit
not
here and be
supposed to
like,
use a script or well, I so people were like, "Claire, you sound better without a script." And it's like, "Okay, well, then I'll just do bullet points." But there has to be something.
there has to be something, or I'm just gonna start talking about Taylor Swift. Do you know what I mean? That's what's going to happen if there's no bullet points. So yeah. So anyway, I think another thing that I'm finding interesting talking to you is the other thing that I do that's masking that maybe a lot of people haven't considered is, how autistic people have potentially a different and slower processing speed than holistic or non-autistic people. Where I notice you taking the time that you need to find the words that you want to use, and I think that's really healthy and really great. What I would do is just say things while my brain is catching up, right?
Yes. There
And I
can't
think
be a quiet space.
no, and that's something that I'm working on really, is to actually take the time to think about what I actually want to say and not just say things to fill the space is an aspect of
There's a lot of pressure there, I think, especially, uh, before you know about, um, being autistic. I think there's, like, the pressure to fill the space. I always remember feeling pretty nervous, with any human interaction where it was like, "Okay, now I have to step up, do this, and do it correctly. So what does that mean?" And it's like, "Well, I don't know what it means, but I guess I'll have to try." Um,
what did someone else do. And I think like this is where you see me at my most uncomfortable. If I'm making a video and I'm telling you something that I know about and I'm passionate about, uncomfortable. If I am, I'd actually rather be in your seat. If I am facilitating a conversation, or I am hosting, like if you look at the Divergent Voices channel where I've made a bunch of interview videos and I'm hosting and I'm making people feel comfortable and I'm getting them to share their stories, absolutely comfortable. Ask me questions that I've not thought about and I've got to think of answers to, and I'm just a bit like, it's more like reciprocal conversation, right? And I find reciprocal conversation really tricky because of my autism, but also because of my ADHD. I really find it hard, and that's
my
why I talk
biggest thing is
self.
remembering, like, this is like doing this is a really good practice for me. And I've said before, I found it extremely healing to talk to other autistic people about our lives. I found it very healing, and I don't know, I haven't seen many other similar podcasts. I'm sure they're out there. Now I forgot what I was gonna say. You were saying
We're
sorry.
talking about masking. We're talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
masking.
Um, nope, I lost it. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's just part of the that's part of the thing. Um, oh, that's what I was going to say. It's been very good practice for me because, since learning about my diagnosis, I have learned more skills to communicate with others, both neurodivergent and neurotypical. Um, I've really worked on that because as a person who didn't realize they were speaking a different language, I've like worked on those skills. So it's been really good for me to do this because I have to practice verbally showing my interest in other people and, like, turning things around and asking questions when it's, like, easier for me as an autistic person to just monologue or talk about a different subject or so being able to, like, say, "Oh, well, what do you think about that? What was your experience with that?" That does not come naturally to me. But it has made me feel more curious and interested since putting those things into practice because in the past, I would have just been like, "Well, I don't care." So this is so terrible, right? Because it's, like, not how people communicate where it's like, "Well, I don't care about what they're doing or what they say, so, like, why would I ask about it?"
That's quite a good example of how different autistic people are because I am fascinated, have always been fascinated by other people's stories.
Interesting,
Um,
because
I
I
really
am now, I'm totally interested. But I wouldn't have maybe it's not a lack of care. Maybe it's, like, I just wouldn't even think to ask. Because in my mind, if a person had something to tell you, they would just tell you. So I wouldn't think to, like, dig deeper, ask people questions. Something I did wanna ask you, um, when you chose your YouTube do they call it a moniker? Name? When you
yeah.
chose Purple Ella, what was your thought process behind that? And
Oh,
what and do you so, okay, so when I chose my channel's name, Woodshed Theory, I was like, "So deep, so interesting, people are gonna love it." I did not think that for the rest of my life, people would call me Woodshed.
oh my gosh. Do they?
I They're like, "Hey, Woodshed." "Oh, it's Woodshed." And it's like, "Oh, well, didn't think about that before I chose my channel name."
Honestly, I suck at naming things. Like, I really suck at naming things. I didn't name any of my children. I mean, I did, but like my husband came up with the name suggestions. I've never named a pet. I suck at naming things. If I were naming things, everything in my house, all my children, all my pets would just be called Bob. It's the only name I can ever think of. And it works both ways. It's a great name. So, or yeah, Colin. So I suck at naming things. And I was umming and erring and umming and erring. And in the end, I think someone said to me, well, you just have to name it something or you're never going to make anything. You'll just be stuck in the naming phase. And my favorite color is purple. And that's really how deep it is. So not deep at all. And I don't mind it actually. I think on the surface level of like you were saying of that's what people will always refer to me as, I kind of like it. I feel a bit like Pink, I'm purple. And I quite
That's
enjoy
so
that.
true. I mean, at least you have a good I mean, it's better than getting called Woodshed.
Which, yeah,
So
yeah, I think so. I think so. But at the same time, in terms of like analytics, it might have been smart to include what I do in the name of my channel.
oh my gosh, yeah, I've told my friends before, like, why didn't I name my channel like Autism, Woodshed, Spectrum Theory?
Come here and learn about autism. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, but then at the same time, like it is my name, it's what I'm known by. I'm fine with it. It just wasn't very
Yeah.
deep, really that straightforward.
Sometimes I tend to be an overthinker. So I'm like, when I was choosing mine, I was like really trying to go for something different. And well, it's interesting to me because every time it's re, well, I think that there's like a lot of confusion about what I talk about. And I think sometimes people are like, well, where's the woodworking video here?
Maybe that's an avenue for you to explore because I can see, I'm gonna have to say, I've been taking the whole podcast, but I can see you're like a crafty person, unless you're in someone else's room.
No, it's mine.
You've got a fabric stash, you've got a lot of wool up there, haven't you? Like a
So
really
much.
large, and you
So
were
much.
crocheting. And I really like to know what it is. To my left, your right, you've got like a wooden thing with what looks like rainbow colored balls in it. Yeah. What is
Yeah,
that?
so I think that I love I love thrifting and going to, like, the secondhand shops and things,
But
and
maybe you could also love woodcraft.
exactly. I got that, and I think that originally was, to hang up, like a there's, like, a little thing for, like, a teacup and saucers. That's what I think it was for.
What's the thing that's actually in it? That's what I'm curious about. Is it
There
wool?
so it's wool, yeah. It's well, I mean, it's acrylic, so it's not technically wool, but in the UK, I know you call it wool, but yeah, it's full of cakes of wool.
Okay, so yeah, so it is the set. So you've just got. So are you a crocheter? Is that what this is?
Yeah, I do a lot of crochet and I do some knit and do some, like, machine knit, and now you're interviewing me, so that's fun. But
I
yeah,
love
like
it. This is what I do. I don't want
so
to
yeah,
answer
I've
questions.
got
I
it's
want to ask you a
everywhere.
question.
It's everywhere in my house. Um, yeah, it's my other part of my business. So, like, I decided because I love it, I just, like, I make things and sell them to help support my dreams, and, yeah, that's been a really fun business adventure, but, yeah, no woodworking, just, I wouldn't call it too much yarn and wool, but I definitely have more than most. But again, I get it all. I mean, I don't think 99% of the time it's thrifted or on clearance or on sale, so I'm not it's not hurting anybody. What kind of
No,
hobbies are
no,
you
what
into?
like I find it interesting, and I am interviewing you now, aren't I? I'm so sorry. I just can't be interviewed. I am interested in why you're like a little bit embarrassed by your wool stash. I mean, be proud. You've got like a good wool stash there. You seem to be
I'm
a little
not
bit.
I think it's more like, I probably because I respect you a lot, so, like, you being like, "Look at what you got." I'm like, "Oh, I
No,
guess that"
I'm
so
like, it looks
this is all wool up here.
nice.
There. There's some in the closet, then there's the fabric, there's a cupboard over here, so it's everywhere.
I love that. I'd love a craft room. I love craft rooms. I think craft rooms are amazing, and I'd really like to be the sort of person that has one, but I don't do yarn or fabric related crafts because they're stressful.
What are you into then?
I do digital drawing,
Okay.
and Fimo, which is like polymer clay,
Okay, okay.
brand name for polymer clay, and also like air drying clay. I quite like clay. Clay is fun. I made candles this Christmas. I enjoyed that.
Nice.
That was good. Um, yeah, drawing, art. I kind of, yeah, I'm not actually very craftily inclined, because of my dyspraxia, I think. And I used to think I couldn't craft at all. And then I got a crafty friend, as crafty as you, I would say, because she has a very similar looking yarn stash. And she was like determined to show me that I could craft. And she got me into needle felting, which you can't really go wrong with needle felting. Have you ever tried it?
Yeah.
Really fun.
I think I think when people say that they're not into crafting or making things, I have to remind them that sometimes you just need to find, like, what's for you. Like, for example, candle making isn't super like, it can be very artistic and creative, but it's mostly science.
Or baking. It's like baking. And I
Yeah,
love
it's like mostly
baking.
like, if you wanna make it, but you don't feel like you don't have a very creative mind, you just follow the recipe.
I suppose that's what I like to do. I like to follow a
Yeah,
recipe. I also really love building Lego, and like you get a, but I don't like free building. I like Lego with
the
instructions. Follow the
set.
instructions, get the thing. And even with my drawing, I'll tend to enjoy following a drawing tutorial rather than
Yeah.
just doing something. I think that's what I like to do. And it's not that I'm
Interesting.
not creative so much as I just find, part of the reason that we craft us being, I mean, especially as a neurodivergent person, is that it makes my brain calm. It's
Yeah,
lovely. It's singing in your
it's very
brain.
stimmy to me.
And so that is the way of crafting that makes my brain feel like the most happy, I suppose.
I like crochet because it's the same movements thousands of times over and over again, and if you can really get into, like, a groove, it's, like, very to me, it's, like, swaying, and it's very comforting to me. I could kinda just turn my brain off, and I think it's really important for me as, like, a self-regulating activity.
I can really
Even
see
when I was
appeal to
younger, like,
crochet.
sewing, to be able to, like, just get into, kind of into, hyper focus mode and just to be and, like, quiet everything else in the mind, like, that's very I think is very important. Even before I knew I was autistic, that I would, um, love having moments like that where I was able to express myself that way. Yeah, I think an undiagnosed mind can be it's so hectic and cluttered. And I was, as a person who wa was living with undiagnosed OCD as well, and I was very, very sick. So, like, there was a lot going on in my mind and not a lot of, like, room for a breath. So that's where I felt like doing stuff like that was helpful. But I wouldn't ever, like, hold on to it for very long. Like, I would just do spurts of something. Did wanna talk to you about, so, when I was asking I always ask people, "Who do you wanna see on the podcast? Who should we talk to next?" Your name, came up a lot, and
Are
after
you
I did
regretting that decision now?
yeah,
Been a
this
bit
is
chaotic.
what even is this? Just kidding, I'm just kidding. It's going great, I'm having a blast, so I hope that that's apparent. Um One of the big questions was or, some question like, weird questions you get on YouTube where you're like, "I don't know, like, why are you asking me?" Is, "Where is where is Ella? What are they where did they go? Are they okay?" Um, which I think is very sweet, but I don't know why people are asking me this. I don't know, like, we all behind the scenes, we all,
We all know each other. We all have coffee every week.
So,
I just get
my
on the bus to the States.
Of course, my response is, I don't know, and also, what I tend to do is I encourage people to realize that people who do YouTube, sometimes we need privacy, so just give people privacy. But then, something that came up as well, so this is all a long, convoluted question, I guess, um, was that you were really posting to neurodivergent voices more now. So can you kind of
Yeah.
speak to that?
What's
How
happening? Where have I been? Why have I not made any content since about last September?
gee, it's the YouTube scandal of the
I mean,
year.
I did make content consistently for 7.5 years, so it's nice to know that somebody's noticed I've not been
There are
making it.
people have noticed, Ella,
Really
people have
thought
noticed,
nobody
and
had
they want
noticed.
me to know they want me to figure it out. So,
Um, no, I'm not posting to Divergent Voices. Divergent Voices is not my channel. It is a channel owned by a company called Clinical Partners who employed me in a paid capacity to make some videos for them with other advocates. And I've really enjoyed that project, but it's not my channel. And I won't be posting to it unless they employ me to make more videos, which they probably will. There are still videos that I made for them that haven't gone up yet, put it that way.
okay. Well, that's good
So
to
no,
know.
that's not it. Honestly, this is a really, really funny answer. I can't get rid of the background noise when I record. I was recording on a Sony ZV something, the vlogger's camera. I've
Okay,
been
I have that one.
cameras.
ZB1.
I get a weird black background. If you go and watch any of my videos, you will hear it in the background of my videos. And I had convinced myself that that's why I'm not getting views. And I have tried absolutely everything over a period of many, many years to get rid of the hiss, and I can't get rid of it. So I stopped making videos.
Fair,
It's
fair.
making me crazy. But I am still making content every single week. I make short form content now because I can make that on my phone and there is no background hiss on my phone. So if I am making short form YouTube videos and I'm making short form content on other platforms where you can find short form content. So if people want to watch my content, that is still there. And I haven't like decided I'm literally never going to make a video again. I guess in reality, if I were getting 20, 30,000 views on my videos, I might have been able to hire someone to help me deal with the background hiss. But since I'm not, it felt like a sort of, well, okay, I could spend loads of time, energy, money trying to get rid of this hiss. And for what purpose when
That is
my
so interesting that you said that because I have the same camera and I have noticed the hiss as well. And I don't I didn't think it was that big of a deal until somebody mentioned it.
it's made me crazy.
Sometimes I'll get comments like, "I can't whatever background noise is going on, I can't take it," or whatever, and then I'm like,
To do
"I'm
something about
so
it. I'm
s"
trying, right?
Yeah, I what I've done is, surprise, surprise, everybody, I don't use fancy software to edit, I use iMovie, which comes with your computer. It's enough for me because I've tried other softwares and I'm like, this is too complicated and I don't think I need to spend money on it. I just use the reduce background noise thing,
And you get,
but
because
it
I
doesn't work very well, does it?
doesn't work very well. I use Final Cut Pro, and you can only reduce it so much before you start sounding like a robot. And I would still have the hiss. And I've had the hiss on another camera. I used to use a Canon, like a I used to use a Canon camera, and that also had the hiss. I think to do with the microphone that I was using. I was using a
Is it
Rode.
is it just that neurodiverse people can, is it like the electricity thing?
No, because I've gone this far. I've had someone else's video up and my video up and gone, they've got no hiss. I've got a hiss. It's because basically, if you record an empty room, you will get a hiss. There is never complete silence, right?
Right.
But there's something to do with, and I tried turning down you might want to turn down the input on your like the amount that it's receiving can help with that. But I don't know why the hiss is particularly bad. Maybe it's my environment. I really don't know. But it has occurred to me that if people would be happy with me just recording long form on my phone, which could be fine, maybe I could
Yeah,
make more content. But if I was going to do that, I'd really like to see my views increase, because it's like I'm not going to keep making videos every single week for like 1,000 views in a full week.
I get
That's not
it.
something I'm interested
I
in doing.
found too, like I've also switched to doing more short form, um, which it's like I don't know if you feel this way too. It's like you put all this work into a long form video, you don't get a lot of traction, and then you like, pick up your phone, do a short form video. You're like, do you ever feel this way? Put it up, and then it's got 4 or 5,000. Okay, maybe not mine, but maybe yours. But it's like got thousands of views, and you're like, why? Why? Don't they know that I put time? And this took me 10 seconds, and it's like, so really I think what it highlights is that you can't know what will get picked up or what people will watch.
I
So,
think I'm just a better short form. I think I also am maybe a better short form creator because it forces me to ramble less.
you know
Like I'm
what? That's a good point, which I hadn't thought about, is that
makes
maybe
me more
when
succinct,
maybe
right?
when you're forced to get to the point and you have to cut it out. I felt like our time here has gone by very quickly. So thank you for, I mean, I can't believe how fast for me it's gone by so fast. I feel like it was weird to be nervous because I think you're very easy to talk to. Um, and you've given us such great insight into several topics, and I'm happy that you agreed to be on the podcast. What I think we were just talking about, you know, where you've been, what you've been up to. What are you thinking for the future of Purple Ella or your life as an advocate? What do you think is next for you?
I think I've been giving this a lot of thought actually, because as we were just talking about, because I've had a bit of time because I've not been making long form content. I would like there's like the big ambitions and the small ambitions. On the well, they're all big, but on the like realistic ambitions, I suppose I am going to do a coaching course to get a coaching qualification, and would like to start to offer neurodivergence coaching to neurodivergent adults who might like that. And I have also started delivering a lot more training, because that feels like it's going to, like, I'm working as a trainer on the National Autism the Trainer project here in the UK, which is training a lead in every mental health service to be the autism lead. I feel like delivering training in those kinds of spaces is going to be affecting systematic change, right? And systemic change, and that feels really useful. So I want to do that more. On the like bigger, more ambitious goals, I would really like to write a book. I'd like to write a book and have that be published and in my hands. And I would also really like, should anyone feel like they would like to help me with this, I would like to do a TED talk.
Whoa.
Yeah, I feel like I could do that.
I feel
No,
like that would be an amazing TED Talk. That's how I learned that I was on the autism spectrum, through a TED Talk of a person saying like, "Hey, this was my life," and me being like, What? That sounds familiar.
So I'd
Uh,
quite like to speak to the like ADHD, autism and ADHD experience.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I need someone to nominate me. So like anyone wants to nominate me for a TED Talk, please feel free to do so. I'd be up
let's
for it.
make it happen. I If I can find a nominating link, I will post it down below. I don't know how that works, but I'll try.
I think you get nominated. I think that's how it happens.
And what about um, if you could say something to the autistic community? Like, what do you feel your distilled message is to the autistic community?
I mostly would like to say, like, be kind to yourself, process the trauma that might have led you to find it hard to be kind to yourself and see yourself as someone who's deserving of compassion and kindness and keep working on being kinder to yourself because for me the thing that makes the biggest difference in my day-to-day wellness is when I have a greater ability to be kind to myself basically so that um and I suppose like the other thing that I was thinking of when I was thinking about this question is like do what you need to do to feel comfortable in your own skin
Mm-hmm.
without judgment of what you feel like you should be doing or what others feel like you should be doing.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your kindness to come on to the show today. And I think you did a great job because um, the show's called Autistic People Talking, and that happened. So
That's true. That did happen. We were autistic and we talked. So
I feel like I've set the bar very low for what has to happen, but for it to be a podcast. So as long as some discussion happened, uh, we accomplished that. So
yeah, leave a
I
comment if you kept up with us and did not get like really confused around the tangent when I started talking about wool.
oh, I think people are used to that here, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, you probably did
I
a lot,
I
didn't you?
always feel like autistic people like they love to show like they come alive when they show their special interests. So we talk about wool a lot here, so you don't have to worry about that. Well, thank you for coming on today, and everyone. I hope that if you have any additional questions, leave them in the comments. If you're interested in nominating Ella for a TED Talk, figure that out and make it let's make it happen. Well, thank you for coming and see you next time, everybody. Bye.